Hi guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. I'm Jim. I'm here with my brother Steve, my partner in crime. Steve.
Hi, Jim. May 9th, 2020.
Right, sixth, seventh week into this whole
Crisis, pandemic.
pandemic, COVID-19.
A little cold out today here on the 9th of May. In fact, should be some flurries coming later.
Potential record cold in suburban
Here we
New
are
Jersey.
in May,
Right,
global warming.
maybe it is real. Who knows?
Maybe.
Okay, then stop making products and stop driving cars, and we'll solve the problem.
That's it. Let's go back to horse and buggy days. Blocks of ice.
Yeah. But listen, we want to certainly start off by wishing everybody, hope everybody and their families are doing well. It is a crazy time. Can't go out of the house without a mask. It's something we never possibly could have thought we would see in our lifetime, and it happened.
There are some nice masks out there.
Very creative.
In fact, I was outside. I was at the dry cleaner actually because I hadn't picked up my shirts in months. I remembered I had shirts there. But
you haven't needed them.
But anyway, I heard a guy came in and he was selling masks. And I actually, I'm in sales, so I appreciate a good,
Salesman making the effort.
right,
Gotcha.
good byline. And anyway, hey, these are from Italy.
Ooh, Italian.
Washable, finest material available, etc., etc. So, the mask guy was there. So
Of course.
I'm not quite sure what company he represents, but
I'm sure Gene Simmons from Kiss has created Kiss
absolutely,
masks
you
that
gotta
are
think,
selling, right? Or
You gotta-
they sell Kiss coffins.
You got to
flying
think the
out.
Rolling Stones got their signature tongue on theirs.
I guarantee you can go online tomorrow and buy a Rolling
You
Stones.
could go to
mask.
Fanatics probably and buy any NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League
Gotcha.
Baseball team. So
But listen, it is a crazy time, but we appreciate it, and we wanted to do a show because we got a lot to talk about, actually. Right? A couple of things that I want to bring up. But first, want to start off that this segment is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Haverstraw, New York, and they've been through it, and we hope them and their families doing well. And right, we're trying to keep busy here. Right?
absolutely. So what we got?
There's a couple things, and we're going to get to a couple of different sports because there was certainly a notable passing in the NFL. We'll get to that, but I want to say again, without these real sports going on and so forth, we're digging into the archives and watching some unbelievable footage, and I got to throw kudos out to MSG Network, Walt Frazier, Bill Bradley, and Willis Reed, like they did, half-hour bios on these guys.
Right.
And I actually forgot that Walt Frazier and Bill Bradley both came up. They played from 67 to 77 for the New York Knicks, and obviously won a couple championships. But it was very cool. And Steve and I were talking about, I was watching this, and Bill Bradley, this kid from Princeton, and he was so excited to come to New York. And his first 2 years were horrible for him. People were calling him a bust. Actually said people were spitting on him. This is Bill Bradley, right? Future senator and, stand-up guy altogether. It was so awesome. But then his third year, and that was the year they won the championship, beat the Lakers. And it was unbelievable.
Dollar
footage.
Bill Bradley, number 24. What I remember about him is him basically doing figure eights, running around the basketball court.
Bob Cousy-ish.
But that's
right?
what it was. That's what basketball was back in the day. It
Yep.
was about passing, about cutting, about picks,
Wearing
setting screens.
Their Chuck Taylor Converse high tops.
Yeah,
right?
but Bill Bradley, when he got open, he was a lethal shooter.
Yep.
And that's what his forte was in college. I mean, he led Princeton basically to, I think, the NCAA final.
Absolutely.
And, they wound up losing. I want to say, top of my head, I think they lost to Bradley, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't answer that
But
for sure.
Bill
but I
Bradley
know.
was player of the year. He was just a tremendous college basketball
Rhodes
player.
Scholar.
Rhodes Scholar,
Right.
United States Senator, but
But I thought it was very intriguing to watch how this kid, he was the savior of the Knicks, so forth. But all the pieces fell together, and it was so awesome. And I forgot how great Clyde Frazier was too.
Well, you and I talked about it. I'm going on record saying Walt Clyde Frazier is the greatest Knick who's ever played for the Knicks.
It would be hard for me to dispute.
And I would
right?
love for somebody to tell me that Patrick Ewing is better, or Willis Reed was better, or
DeBusschere Bradley,
Hawthorne Wingo was better,
Phil Jackson,
Michael Ray Richardson,
because we're talking the NBA. Well,
Ray Williams.
right, Trent Tucker.
No, but to me, Walt Clyde Frazier actually was outstanding.
Cool as hell, and it was awesome.
And I'm glad you brought up Phil Jackson, because we haven't talked about The Last Dance yet, the Chicago Bulls thing.
Yeah.
But there's footage of Phil Jackson when he came up with the Knicks. So he grew up in like Montana. He went to North Dakota, which I didn't know this about Phil Jackson, to be honest.
I didn't know it either.
So basically, he gets drafted by the Knicks. He was actually pretty good. I mean,
He was a good seventh player on the team.
He
right?
contributed. So Phil was on both title teams for the Knicks, but he played a role, and he was pretty good.
But how funny! It looked like his body was hanging on like you would hang a T-shirt on a hanger. It was so funny.
Yeah.
But you're right. He contributed. No question about it.
So Action
Hawthorne
Jackson.
Wingo, and of course we all know what number he wore. 0.
Of course.
Right. Good name out of the past. But that was cool about the Knicks, and the MSG did a pretty good job on it. It was actually very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about The Last Dance, because we really haven't.
Yeah.
And I got some thoughts on it too.
So
but
we're six episodes in, and the first thing I kind of observed about it is I actually forgot how great Michael Jordan was.
What?
The footage you see,
It's great, no question about it.
he is, to me, he's the greatest basketball player.
You and I have never wavered on our position on that. And
And the reason I'm saying that is because, Larry Bird is my favorite of all time. But I have to...
who always gets left out of the conversation when you talk about greatest basketball player.
But I gotta say, just watching the footage of Michael Jordan...
We loved it. We
I
watched
know,
it in
but
North Carolina.
because it's been, a couple decades now at least,
Right.
that I kind of forgot. So this footage is outstanding. The behind-the-scenes stuff is great. The rivalry with the Pistons was great.
Awesome.
The fact that they hate Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson.
Yep.
Right? So when you get to that Dream Team stage...
And that's a big controversy about that.
Right. Was Isaiah Thomas worthy of being on that team? Of course he was.
Absolutely.
However, 4 or 5 of them said there isn't a chance in hell he's playing on our team.
And you know why? Because Michael Jordan had that, because guess who was Isaiah Thomas's coach? Chuck Daly.
That's right.
And he was the coach of the Olympic team. For him not to get on there shows exactly how much influence Michael Jordan had on it, right?
Right. But then, then you see a piece on Isaiah Thomas about, so when the Bulls finally, beat up the bad boys. And it was great. The maturation of the Bulls having to lose to them, putting the pieces together.
Exactly.
And then when they finally beat the Pistons, after the Pistons won back-to-back championships, the fact that the Pistons just got up and walked away without shaking hands with the Bulls, I thought spoke volumes.
I agree.
And now you got Isaiah just saying, well, that's the way it was. But then Isaiah references, well, the Celtics did this to us.
Yep.
And then they showed footage of him. Kevin McHale was basically, Isaiah grabbed Kevin McHale's hand. It wasn't Kevin McHale extending his congratulations.
No, it wasn't.
Right? So Isaiah, again, comes across as he's such a douche.
I know, but you and I...
But a great basketball player.
great basketball player. You're right.
But I can't stand him.
But listen, let me give
as a person.
And I agree. This whole Last Dance thing, and it's pretty cool. Tonight's episode, what, 7, 8, 8, 9? I don't know.
Tomorrow night will be episodes 7 and 8.
So I didn't catch it from the first night it was on, but I'm all caught up now. And you're right. It's awesome. But as one of our listeners, Mike Garvey, pointed out, I got a little crazy with the timelines. They were going kind of back and forth,
Yeah.
and it kind of it broke up the flow of what we thought it was going to be,
Sure,
right? From day one to day
Yeah,
whatever.
they go from 98 back to 92.
But in
93,
between, right, all the
94.
footage was great and all the conversations was great. Bill Wennington, I saw Bill Wellington.
Will Perdue?
Yeah.
Right, so when they're gambling in the back of the bus. So Will Perdue.
They're throwing around Franklin's in the
Right.
back, and up front they got George Washington.
They were playing for a buck.
Right.
So it was Will Perdue and Paxson and everything else, and then Jordan would come up to the front and he would say, hey, I want to get in on the game. They're like, what are you kidding?
No.
We go, we're playing for a buck. But Jordan's answer was, I want to take your money.
I want to give you, let me give you my thoughts, because these stories were great. He came off to me, and I worshiped this guy from day one. Like I said, you and I knew him at North Carolina when he came, and hits the great shot in the championship game, and so forth. And that's cemented his foray into the NBA, and he lived up to all the expectation. But it took him like 6-7 years to win an NBA championship.
Became Olajuwon and then Mr. Sam Bowie.
But I gotta
Were
say, to
drafted.
me, watching The Last Dance, and I'm 6 episodes in, he's a little more arrogant than I thought he was.
He had to be, though.
And I get that. So I'm trying to weigh, in between saying, yeah, he had to be that way. He was literally the biggest guy
He
on the
was
planet.
literally the Beatles. So the footage of him, like, actually in his hotel room,
I know.
smoking a cigar, he literally gets 4 or 5 hours a day.
I get it.
And then you could see the demand on his time.
And let me
everything. But
point
that
out-
comes with the territory.
But Steve, let me point out one thing, and this is what drove me nuts, and that led me to. He's a little more arrogant. The way he treated Jerry Krause. What did Jerry Krause do wrong other than put the right pieces in place? The guy was a puzzle master. The way they berated him.
They all berated him.
It was like the way Craig Patrick got treated by Herb Brooks, right? In Miracle season
Right.
of 1980. What did Jerry Krause do
They
wrong?
can't get no respect there. They
But-
can't get no respect.
But did you see the way Jordan hated Jerry Krause so
Yes.
much? And I'm going, why? Why? Jerry Krause was Jerry Reinsdorf's guy,
Yeah.
right? Which,
And he was there a while, too. Like,
but didn't you think it was so
He was the
demeaning the
architect.
way he treated him?
Yeah, all the players did. But if Jordan could do it, then they could all get away with it.
But what was the reason? Because what? Krause didn't look the other way.
Because
and
Krause
the
was
Tony Kukoc thing when
but
they
Krause
drafted
was
him.
his own guy, and Jordan, and Krause wasn't going to ask Michael Jordan
I know.
what I should do. Should I
Okay.
sign Tony Kukoc? So the point is,
I want to talk about that.
Jerry
something.
Krause went to Yugoslavia and,
Loved the kid.
and was enamored with him,
Enamored, perfect.
right?
Yeah.
And then paid him pretty good money. And meanwhile, Pippen is crying, but Pippen signed a contract.
Exactly. Let's
7
move
years,
on.
$18 million, and then
He's actually watching The Last Dance. Pippen was better than I thought he
no,
was.
Pippen was great,
He was, but he was Michael Jordan.
but he was very underpaid and became bitter. But
Harry
you know
Carson
what?
and Carl Banks.
That's on him, because he was over the 100th highest paid player when, in fact, obviously Scottie Pippen was the top 5 guy in the league.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, they got this film crew in. I guess it was the '98 season, all access. So the stuff that we're watching is unfiltered,
Unseen before.
unseen,
I know.
but I think it's fantastic, and it also gives you a pretty good insight into Phil Jackson. Right, Phil Jackson when he Tex Winter,
Yeah.
right?
That
Doug
was his guy.
Collins
That
thing.
was his guru.
But you know
Yeah.
what, Phil Jackson, I'm giving him a lot more credit for those championships than I think I knew, because he coached his team the way he wanted to coach them, held them accountable.
But Krause put the.
But he had
pieces in
Michael
place.
Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Okay.
And Krause put the other guys in.
I'm
The
not
John
ta-
Paxson thing?
John-
How awesome was that?
Well, how great was that when, Paxson against the Lakers, right? Jordan finally decides to pass. Why? Because Phil goes, Paxson's open the whole night.
and he couldn't miss.
And he couldn't miss. Right? But again, it's
So that shows the unselfishness, but the arrogance. I really thought the Krause thing. He really took
took over the top a bit.
It was, for me, it was over the top.
Right, but I think Jerry Krause wasn't the most well-liked person within that organization. But it's not about a popularity contest.
Okay.
He was the architect of 2 3-peats.
And it's not his fault. He was 5'4" or whatever it was.
Listen,
you know.
he was probably 300 pounds, right? So they broke his chops beyond words.
But I must say, The Last Dance overall, this is very cool. You're right. We've seen footage we haven't seen before, and we followed Michael Jordan's career from day one, right? Everything that was ever printed about him.
I can't wait till they get to the White Sox.
That's tonight,
I know,
actually.
or
It
tomorrow.
is. Which, was kind of a crazy time. I'm kind of interested to see. His father wanted him to be a baseball player.
You know who his
not a
manager
basketball.
was in the minor leagues?
I don't.
Terry Francona.
Ooh, he was a good hitter.
Yeah, he's a pretty good manager too.
But he was a good hitter. First base, Expos?
Yeah.
Yep.
Phillies.
He came up with the Expos, though, right?
Yeah, he played with the Phillies. I think he's more well known.
But very cool, The Last Dance. And I'm going to watch.
And we'll comment as there's 4 more episodes, so a couple more weeks.
And if you guys
We
out
would
there,
love your feedback on The Last Dance. Sports with Mono and Mono at gmail.com.
Right.
And we go from there. What else you got?
So I think we're good on the NBA, right? But let's touch on football. And normally we.
Well, let's get back to the NBA. They actually Adam Silver actually had a conference call with the players yesterday.
Okay, well,
and actually a couple of the facilities are now open.
Right.
Cleveland, I think Denver, and then I think Portland were the 3 that were going to open up.
Well,
and again,
when one opens up,
it's
they're
not,
all
it's
coming.
not a limited basis, no, but there's some certain cities, New York, for example, that are still hotbeds for Corona. Mark Cuban is, talking about he's not going to open up his facility. He thinks it's too early, that type of thing. But I got to think the NBA is probably going to be, 5-6 weeks out. And again, we don't know what that means. We don't know how many games. We don't know what format. We don't know
Exactly.
how you crown a champion.
Exactly.
And so they're talking, and I think Major League Baseball, I would be optimistic to say I would foresee late June. I think they're going to be going to spring training.
And I think we're going to see shortened seasons in all these sports. You can't
Of
possibly
course it's going to be
jam
short.
it in.
It's-
Or postpone it and then just start next, you missed a year, right?
we don't. It's all speculation.
World War
We
II,
don't know.
right?
But it's going to
Baseball.
be shortened. There's no question, and
Yeah.
everybody's taking a hit. But NFL, the Week 1 schedule came out yesterday,
It did.
so they're doing business as usual. Now, whether there's going to be any people in the stands, that's another discussion. However, I did see something about Miami. I don't know if you saw this, about the Dolphins on a contingency plan. If the season should start
Right.
for their home games,
Right.
they're talking about a way to separate entrances, this, that, and the other thing. If you want a beer or a hot dog, you have to order from your seat. You can go pick it up. There'll be no vendors, this, that, and the other
All right,
thing.
so these are the Corona rules. Is that what
Basically,
we're talking about?
so this
Right.
is the first foray into
Okay.
how do you combat it. When you're exiting the stadium, it'll be by row.
I know, but thank
Things
God
like
thank God we could wake up every morning, through this crisis and watch the Korean Baseball League, right?
Oh yeah.
So if that's an indication of
Sun
what things
Chu
are didn't he just hit
Now
a home
batting,
run? No, that was
Number
his brother.
5, Sung Jung Chu.
And now his brother is Sunjo Blue.
Jim Sun Ri.
All right, but, anyway. Korean baseball, that's what it's come to, right? ESPN's going to have the cornhole championships today.
Absolutely.
So which we talked about. Sponsored by, of course, Johnsonville.
Now batting.
Bob Shepard doing cornhole championships.
I'm doing Bob Shepard doing the Korean Baseball League.
But listen, we're talking about all these sports coming back, and they'll come back at some form, but it's going to be different. But I'm driving over here today to do the show in Steve's studio, and I drove by the baseball field, and this is, like I said, this is the suburbs of New York City. We're an hour from the city, we're an hour from the beach, Jersey Shore, we're an hour from the mountains in Pennsylvania, right? And it's empty. And these are the very fields Steve and I played on when we were kids, like all day long. And obviously no one's playing, but if this happened when we were that age, of course we would have snuck out, played anyway.
Well, we'd been playing stickball at the water tower. There'd be a tournament.
Without masks.
There would be a wiffle ball tournament going on in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
And on and on.
But it was something to see. It's a massive complex, right? There's like 12 baseball fields, and these are the very fields that you and I played on from 8 years old till we went to high school, right?
Yeah, football and
it's still there, and they're
baseball.
beautiful fields and a beautiful facility in Oakland, New Jersey, and there wasn't a baseball player to be seen.
And that's what makes me, I think, the most sad. It's for the kids, obviously. Do I miss professional sports? But I love college sports. I love high school sports. But, right, like to your point, not seeing 8 and 9-year-olds out there.
On 12 baseball fields, all empty.
Not seeing the 10 and 11s that move up to a bigger field, right? And not seeing the 10 and 11s that are now 12 and 13 that go to the big field, right? So it's sad for me because I live literally,
a 5-iron away.
I could exactly, and so to me, that's the biggest loss. I think is not hearing the sights and sounds. An ice cream truck guy in the parking lot, kids sweating, parents yelling.
On a day like today. Today's a Saturday afternoon.
Right, and listen, a kid is going to miss out on his first home run. Right, a kid is going to miss out on the thrill of victory. A kid is, all little things like that. I think of that these moments are taken away from them, and that, like I said, it goes from 8 and 9 up to professional sports. But again, like high school kids and stuff like that, and especially the seniors, both in college and high school. And my son is in 8th grade, and I feel real terrible for him because. His 8th grade year is gone.
It's a year you can't get back.
They're not going back to school. I'll say that now. There were hopes of May 15th, but that's not happening. And I'm not even sure if they'll even have a graduation ceremony, to be honest. So,
but I'm bringing
to
that
me,
up because
that hits home.
It was kind of eerie driving out here watching. This place would be bustling. Right? Bustling.
But this is just Oakland, New Jersey, and you times that by every municipality from the East Coast, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
You can't even
2 million
fathom.
baseball fields that are normally,
right.
Games going on.
Exactly.
But that's kind of what sign of the times. But listen, sports will come back, and things will get back to normal at some point. But it really was something I wanted to bring up because these were the very fields you and I played on as kids. And we played with guys that went on to college and were solid players. And this is you're right. One kid may have hit his first home run this spring.
Absolutely.
Because next year he moves up to another level and never gets that home run. That's a good scenario there. Good baseball.
But on the flip side, then there's a kid who gets hit with his first fastball in the batter's box and has to cry all the way down to first base. So that's good news that he won't have to experience that.
Right. Imagine. Now this would be the
Honey, can you get out of bed?
Twilight Zone episode. But you did. But anyway, so it was kind of funny. I wanted to bring that up because I'm sure there's a lot of people. Tom Kramer out in Dublin, California. Him and his son, kid couldn't be more excited about playing ball, and he can't play ball right now.
Yeah.
So let's move on. And our next segment is sponsored by Lynch Motors of Manchester, Connecticut, and they've been with us through this. And then, from what I hear, everybody's happy and healthy.
Good.
And we thank them for their support. So, Steve, let's touch base quickly on the football situation, right? Your Cowboys signed Andy Dalton. That's not a big deal. What is the big deal? Don Shula, person that you and I grew up with, idolizing as a coach. And I know it's been beat to death. We're a few days past, he passed on Monday, something like that.
Yeah, earlier in the week at
age 90.
90.
Right.
But Don Shula is one of those iconic figures in the NFL, and we had the privilege of Don Shula, and again, we're not going to beat a dead horse, but Don Shula, age 33, hired by the Baltimore Colts.
Yep.
Right, played at John Carroll University.
Had a 7-year career in the NFL.
7-year
as a
career,
player.
defensive back for the Cleveland Browns, and I think he had a cup of coffee with the Redskins. 2-4 in Super Bowls. However, our memory of Don Shula, and we talked about it.
Yep.
We talked about Mike Curtis. So the first Super Bowl I remember is the Cowboys Dolphins. So Bob Lilly and Roger Staubach had, just great day, and the Cowboys kicked the crap out of the Dolphins, 24-3.
Yep.
But it was the best thing for the Dolphins.
Yep.
Right, because the perfect season follows the next year.
Yep.
And
Win back-to-backs. With 2 unbelievable teams. I mean,
as good as that Dolphins undefeated team was, I think they were even better when they kicked the crap out of the Vikings when Larry Zonka, right, just steamrolled the Vikings. Bob Greasy threw only 7 passes in the Dolphin Vikings Super Bowl.
Yep.
But anyway, so back to back, obviously the 17-0 season, and you got to give Shula credit. He was. I'm not going to say he was a player's coach. He held these guys accountable, right? So, but he takes the Dolphins to the Super Bowl with David Woodley.
But he also
in the early '80s, against the Reagan Redskins.
Right. So overall, as people, and I heard from one of our fans, Mike from Naples, Florida, said, we had Dan Marino. He didn't win a Super Bowl. And I said, well, that's on Dan Marino. That's not on Don Shula.
Well,
and that's the rap, I think, which a lot of people avoid talking about when you have a passing of a great coach. And he was great. He was great.
Yeah.
We worship
all-time
him.
wins, 347.
And from
Belichick will surpass.
And from every review I've read, his restaurant Shula's, I'm sure you or maybe my or other brother Tom.
I do have a Tom story.
Have certainly eaten in Shula's, and it was just as good as advertised, right?
Absolutely.
But we really, that's a notable passing when it comes to the National Football League.
No
we
question.
grew up with this guy.
And again, his son David was the head coach of the Bengals.
We remember Mike as a quarterback at Alabama.
And then Mike was just let go from the Giants as offensive coordinator type of thing. I think he's in Denver now. But back to Don Shula. So our brother Tom, biggest Giant fan in the family, I would say.
No doubt.
So anyway, he was at this. I talked to him earlier in the week when Shula passed, and he relayed a couple stories. One was the Giants-Patriots first Super Bowl, '07. Him and his friends are at a bar, Glendale, Arizona. Who walks in and he actually gets to meet Don Shula, who actually happens to be 2 feet from him. So our brother Tom went up to him and said, "How you doing, Coach?" And he said to Don Shula, he goes, "Listen, we're going to take care of business tomorrow. Don't you worry about it," because the Patriots were 16-0, right? So Don Shula said to him, "That's exactly what I wanted to hear." They had a nice exchange. So my brother got to meet Don Shula.
Excellent.
And then back to the Shula Steakhouses, my brother Tom also referenced that in Miami, Don Shula's Steakhouse, he said, was fantastic.
I bet.
Our brother Tom is a Wall Street guy who, trust me,
knows a fine steak when he sees one.
There's no question about that.
Okay.
So anyway, he said he ate there and it was fantastic. However, fast forward a few years, Shula expands the restaurant actually to New York City to the Westin Hotel. probably in Times Square or something like that. And him and his friend Bill went to a birthday dinner, and Tom said, "Hey, Shula's is pretty good," because they ate there in Florida.
Turned out to be a Wendy's.
When
or
he
something?
said it was probably the worst experience
Huh?
for a dinner, and so the maitre d' came over. How was everything, sir? And so our brother Tom said, "You better hope Don Shula doesn't walk in here. If he knows what's going on in this."
Good Shula story.
He said the shrimp at the restaurant in Shula's, you needed to put a saddle on them. The ones in New York City, you would have finding shrimp fried rice at Tommy Chang's local Chinese restaurant.
Well, a typical Monahan response
He
to
said he had to put a saddle on these shrimp.
imagine what you had to put on the steak, right?
Move them up, run them in, move them out. Move 'em up. Right.
Woo! Blazing saddles, right? Anyway, but listen,
Right.
we certainly wanted to
Notable
bring up
passing,
Don
Don
Shula.
Shula.
Big time.
Icon.
Big time.
R.I.P. Don.
Right. So that's pretty good. Pretty good story on Shula. We're talking about football, but it always comes down to food and right something
Food
like
and
that.
beverage.
But anyway, listen. Certainly was worth mentioning. You know, while we're here, see, we'll talk about other notable passings, because there was one today in the entertainment business.
Yes, there was a
Big time
big
guy.
time one. One Richard Wayne Pennyman.
I don't know if I would have got that on Wheel of Fortune.
I know I wouldn't have, but I just looked it up. AKA Little Richard.
Now him I've heard of.
87 years.
Yep. Very influential guy in the music
Oh,
business.
without question. He's, when you think of rock and roll, Little Richard is one of the major influences of the Beatles, the Stones, and
But he gets lost
And on
behind
and on and
the.
on.
He gets lost a little bit in entertainment world, not by music guys like intimate like we know, but Chuck Berry stole a lot of his thunder, right?
and, with his costumes and flamboyancy, a little Liberace type of.
A little liberal. But he had some big hits, man. Tutti Frutti.
But boy, could he hit a piano.
He could
Long
jam
Tall Sally,
Yep.
Tutti Frutti, Good Golly, Miss Molly.
I gotta say, my
Etc.
favorite Little Richard song was "Rip It Up."
Sure.
I played it this morning, going, "This is pretty good."
Yeah. But again, a very influential rock and roll guy. He was actually in the inaugural class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986.
Oh,
I think that's well deserved. And he passes on at 87.
Yep.
But like we said, I mean, just a major influence to many, many rock and roll people and music people in general. So.
And it was right. It was in that era, right? This wild rock and roll. It was the Elvis Presley. It was the Beatles,
50s.
and
Yeah.
but the Beatles and the Stones and all these guys worship guys like
Worship.
Little Rich.
No, absolutely.
That's what makes it so
Chuck
awesome.
Berry, Little Richard,
Yep.
Jerry Lee Lewis, people like that.
Yep.
The Killer, Jerry Lee
Killer.
Lewis.
Yeah, we don't want to dabble.
How old are you? 13? You want to get married?
Hey, I know you're my cousin, but keep it in the family, right?
Exactly.
I know that I didn't want to go there, but we did.
Well, it's true.
But Little Richard, right? And
All
one
right,
other
good.
notable passing in the entertainment world, which we cover everything here. Right?
Sure do.
Siegfried and Roy. How about that?
Wow.
Now, there's a name that people out there will say, they had a pretty good run, these guys.
Until the
Interesting story.
Until the tiger went off the tracks.
I know, but they nailed it for 20 years. Like rocking, they were kind of like Wayne Newton in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. They
Tough
were,
ticket to get,
Sure.
kind of thing. And
freaky looking guys, but nonetheless, they had a great show and a great niche, and
yeah.
and
They were huge.
They
in
made
Las
a
Vegas.
lot of money.
They did.
Yeah,
And I say Wayne Newton, and that's Vegas making money. That guy's still
Wayne
making
Newton,
money.
33 plastic surgeries ago. Wayne Newton.
Oh, yeah, he looks like a cat now. You know?
He doesn't look a day over 85, Wayne Newton.
But it was the Roy of Siegfried and Roy that passed away, and he's literally the one that got attacked by the tiger.
Yeah.
Never recovered from it. Never recovered. So an interview with him like 5 years ago, and he was on his deathbed at the time. But
Yankee Bean, Yankee Bean.
to our Seinfeld audience out there. Yankee
But
Bean.
R.I.P.
Yep,
Roy of Siegfried and Roy.
you
Sure.
bet.
That's a popular name.
You bet.
No doubt.
So those are our shout outs. And again, stay in touch with us because, there's a lot of great highlights that are on TV and so forth. Until Real Sports gets back, that's all we got, Steve.
Pretty much.
Anything else you want to bring up before we sign off? One other thing. The NHL, there was this guy, Brendan Lepake, or I can't even pronounce his last name, Luchitz or something, made some incredible disparaging remarks against women on some social media site.
I didn't see it.
Cut by the Capitals today.
Was he?
Yeah. I mean, this guy, these were horrible. Lepsic, I think his name is.
Okay.
Brendan Lepsic. Him and another guy and a couple other kids from the minor leagues. That's the kind of thing. These are young, promising athletes on the Washington Capitals. I don't know if he won a cup with them a couple of years ago, but you got a chance to play with Ovechkin and you're putting this kind of crap on social media.
Huh?
That's my hockey story right now, other than watching Bobby Orr highlights, which was unbelievable and we talked about. But you got to see this. It's kind of it's unbelievable to even think that these young, potentially great hockey players are
Brendan,
doing
how you
this
doing?
stuff.
It's the president of the Washington Capitals here. How you doing today? How you enjoying your Corona? Good. Brendan, listen, we got a problem here.
And you're not going to play in the NHL ever again.
Brendan, we're going to let you go, okay? What? I didn't do anything. What?
It really was. If you look at some of the footage and Google it, you're going to say, this is what these kids are doing? That's what's... Are people going crazy
There's
that they're
always
doing this?
exceptions to the rule. This is a kid that's, wasn't thinking. And, if you type something, you can't take it back. And I think that's the lesson. And so...
But it's big. He was a good player for the Washington Capitals. And now
the
his
key
career
word
is over.
was a good player.
But like I said, with the NHL, we can't wait for that to come back. But in the meantime, like I said, I could watch the Islanders win a Stanley Cup and Gretzky and Messier on the Oilers every single day if I had to.
That's true.
But listen, you got a sponsor you want to give a
Sure,
shout out to
absolutely.
before we sign
So,
off today?
D. Filippi's Bakery up in Monticello, New York. Like I mentioned, they're doing a cooking through COVID thing, and
Give us an update on that. How's that going?
they're doing good. They're making the meals and they're dropping them off to frontline workers and families in need. And if anybody wants to actually get a meal, if you're going to feed a family of 4 or something, they're open where you can just stop by the bakery, call in advance, and they'll walk the meal out to you. But they're
Sign of the times.
But they're doing what they can, and it's a little windy and cold. We talked about here. Once you go to Monticello, which is about 60 miles up the road here, it's like 10, 12, 13, 14 degrees colder. So they're in for a cold May 9th night. So.
But the weather in the Northeast is going to be cheap. It's going to be 75 degrees next week. So it's just an anomaly as far as the weather
But we
stuff
thank
goes.
D. Filippi's Bakery for their sponsorship, and we hope all's well.
We thank them very much, actually. But again, we'd love to hear from you guys about some of the stuff we talked about, and send us an email at sportswithmanoandmano@gmail.com, and We really hope everyone stays healthy, and we look forward to talking to you guys next week.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.